Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 307 RPG podcast. My name is Patrick.
Nolan.
Nolan, how are you? It's been forever. Not really, since I've seen you. So tell me what's exciting in your life.
Not a whole lot actually. Just played very little video games this weekend. Hoping to make up for that in a little bit. A little bit of D&D coming hopefully this afternoon. Yeah, you got to play some last night, right?
I did. It didn't go quite as we planned. Yes, I ended up playing with a couple of friends from high school. One of them has never played D&D before, and the other one, she got into D&D much later after high school. And we, Kari, who was DMing it, we found out, or I think we both knew this, we just forgot, that our birthdays were in the same month. And there was a meme that Tomorrow had posted that said something about, what are you going to be doing on your birthday? And it was like, get drunk. And then Kari said, hey, drunk in D&D. And it led to, hey, we should actually get together and play. So we played last night. It ended up, I think we played total for about 30 minutes and then chatted for an hour and a half, just kind of catching up. But at the end of it, it was kind of fun because at the end of it, every one of us, or I shouldn't say every one of us, the three of us agreed that we should do this more often. You know, maybe the last weekend of the month on the Saturday, we should sit down together and play because we had a really good time. Kari's our DM. She was telling, I'm hoping it's going to be a good story because I'm sure I was throwing her for loops and ringers and doing stuff that she absolutely didn't expect. Because, I mean, you've dealt with me as a player. I do some shit that you're just like, what the hell are you doing?
That's not a thing, but I'll allow it.
Exactly. Prime example is there was a situation where we were ushered into this courtyard, and there was a feast laid out, but we were ushered in by this guy who was like, I just kept picturing him that he had leprosy. And so my character leans over to Tomorrow, her character, and says, don't eat the food because that's how you're going to turn out. And so Kari, trying to, encourage us all to eat the food because it was safe, just had the main character come down and begin to eat the food. Well, my character just assumed that this character knew the right food to eat, so began eating food off of that character's plate. It's a charisma like 9 or something. So I was like, this is perfect. I'll just play this horribly rude person.
I can dig it. I like it.
Yeah. So it was funny, and we were having a good time. I really enjoyed it. But then we took a break because it was drunken D&D. So I was drinking scotch and whiskey, and Kari was drinking wine, and Tomorrow went and made herself a salty dog. So we were playing, and once we all took a break to go get a drink. Now, I think, Nolan, I've told you this before. This is from my friend Aaron Schossenbach. I keep a bottle of Jameson down here by the computer. So once the scotch ran out, I just began drinking the Jameson because, well, that's what you do, right?
Yep, that's a good choice.
Yeah, exactly. So I just kept drinking that. Well, they all took a minute to go get some drinks and came back, and then it just divulged into, gosh, we literally have not seen each other since high school. And Tomorrow was in a grade above us, and Kari and I graduated together. All of us went to North Pole High School. So it was just fun to sit and chat and reminisce and talk about, the different things that we've learned about people that we went to school with, the teachers that we had, and just how horribly racist some of them are. And just
Fair enough.
It's weird, like, thinking about the people that we grew up with or around, and learning that these people who had influence in our lives, our teachers, some of them are hardcore, like, QAnon conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, you can't control. Well, you guys are pretty old too, so like,
hey, fuck off.
It's a whole different time period, so you got to give the older generation a credit. No, you don't.
Nice.
You don't have to give them any kind of excuses. Well, and I think we see that a lot too. Like anytime we get together, it's been a while, it's like we're going to have a session 0, and it's like session 0 takes 4 hours and actual game stuff takes 12 minutes, and everybody's just happy to be around each other again, catch up, see, just being with people you haven't seen in a bit. So that's usually to be expected for game 1 is nothing goes according to plan.
Right. Right, but it really was nice to sit and chat with the both of them. I had a great time. Kari is working on her PhD, and she's actually doing research with Dungeons and Dragons role playing in general for her PhD. So she really got into it pretty hard. We talked about playing other RPGs, and I of course, as I do throughout Vampire the Masquerade, and they're both like, yes, please. So we may end up like doing like one shots here and there just to try things out and do different things. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to doing more stuff with them. I think Kari is a great DM. Just a little bit I got to experience. I mean, I love it when the DM takes the time to add inflections and give you the impression that these are different characters, and then is able to roll with somebody being a shithead, and not in a bad way, but that and just go with it. And I think
Right.
it's gonna be fun.
Being flexible.
Yep, exactly. So I'm looking forward to doing more with them, and hopefully we get to.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's not very often you get to play, so.
Exactly, and I think it might be a once a month thing, so we'll see. I will keep you posted. So our topic of the night is once again the Altered Carbon RPG. Now, this originally was going to be the last week that we talked about this game because we kind of, do a subject of the month. But we did find out that we are going to have the co-creator of Altered Carbon RPG on our show next week to talk about that game as well as the new game from Hunters Entertainment, Gods of Metal Ragnarok, which is currently on Kickstarter, which we'll talk about later. So that's going to be where we wrap up Altered Carbon is next week. So do make sure you tune in for that because we got some fun stuff coming up there. We also have Sean Reynolds, who's going to be joining us from Monty Cook Games to talk to us about Ptolus. And I know you and I are both excited about that because it's going to be really interesting to hear about that world and learn about Ptolus in general. So next weekend we will have two shows for you guys. We will have Sean Reynolds on Saturday, and then we will have Chris from Hunters Entertainment on Sunday at our normal time. So we got some stuff coming up, man.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. It's always awkward trying to come up with questions for people that are experts because I'm sure they've gotten them all before, and you want to be
Right.
a little different. But then I have like the most basic questions of like just the silliest things of like, what does the mountain of papers look like to get a 700 Tolus book as a finished copy? Like, I mean, is it like all
A
over the place?
massive
Are you
stack.
a mad scientist librarian going on there with notes? Like, I want to know behind the scenes.
Right, right. So it's going to be exciting to talk with them about that. Of course, Tolus is coming up is currently available on pre-release, and Altered Carbon is available on Drive-Thru RPG, and Gods of Metal Ragnarok. Oh, we'll talk about that one later. So, anyway, we do have some news to cover before we jump into Altered Carbon because there's some stuff to talk about with Dungeons and Dragons. So let's jump over to that because there was a new UA released, and Nolan, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can break it down for us.
Not necessarily the most exciting one for me because I like talking about subclasses, but getting
Oh, I
some.
thought this one was cool.
I was gonna say this is some character creation stuff for Gothic lineages, and the first thing we kind of talked about was trying to figure out where I what's a Damphir? Is that how you say it?
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
So Damphir, Hexblood, and a Reborn, looking like I don't know. We felt like maybe some Innistrad stuff was coming. I don't know. We were trying to figure out where you would use these, what you're going to bring these into, and then we also got kind of excited with the idea that there might be maybe some very good horror stories. I guess it is Mysteries of Candlekeep, so maybe there are some darker tales, and these are going to be some options. But so anyway, 3 races that you get to pick, starting with Damphir. Boys between the worlds of the living and the dead, Damphirs retain their grip of life, yet are endlessly tested by the viciousness of hunger. Their ties to the undead grant Damphirs a taste of vampire's deathless prowess in the form of increased speed, dark vision, and life-draining bite. So we kind of have this. I guess you get to be a vampire without going full vampire, and that's you get to be the Daywalker.
Right. Right. And so that's actually, you just nailed it. Blade was a Dhampir. So a Dhampir tends to be the union of a vampire and a human. So much like we get demigods when a god mates with a human, this case is a vampire has mated with a human. Very rarely is it that we see it is a a female vampire mating with a male human. It is almost always a male vampire mating with a female human. So that's where Dhampirs come from.
Gotcha. And again, some very nice RP traits. I think more of this stuff is starting to come up, especially with these here. You figure out what hunger sates you based upon what you are. One of the ones is like, I think if you roll a 7, you get dreams, and that's what you feed on. and I was like, okay, so is this like my guidance counselor, or is this like some evil person? So I like that. Part of the origins is of how you got here, why you got here. You roll a 1 on a d8. You are a reincarnation of an ancestor who was a vampiric tyrant. So instantly it was like, some of the RP stories for the background already I can really get into. We haven't even picked a background yet, or what you are, why you are. And it leads to a huge path of, okay, this is who I am. Do I know it? And if you don't, why you have these things, what you're going after, what are the goals, and how much does that manifest? Do you become the monster? Do you fight it? So I thought there was a lot of nice storytelling that could happen from that one. And then say you roll a 3 and a parasite inhabits your body and you indulge your hunger to sate it. So now all of a sudden it's kind of like that warlock pact that's inside your body telling you to do these things, which also again is a completely different story than, the reincarnation of a vampire. Now all of a sudden you're dealt with a parasite. I don't know. There's a lot of different areas that you could get to this ability or this race. And all of them I thought were really fun stories that took a life on their own. You could play a group with everybody picking a different origin story and have a very interesting table, just like you could with if everybody was a human. They did a good job. I didn't get a feeling like, oh, an elf is an elf is an elf. These are all awesome. So to be a Dhampir trait, Dark Vision, you get Spider Climb. You are proficient with the Bite as a simple weapon. And while you are missing half or more of your hit points, you have advantage on attack rolls with that Bite. When you use your Bite to hit a creature that isn't a construct or undead, you can empower yourself to use it in one of the following ways: regain hit points equal to the damage, or gain a bonus to the next ability check or attack roll you make. The bonus is equal to the damage you dealt. You can empower yourself with a Bite a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So we're seeing that carried over from Tasha's. I like it. I think it's cool. I don't know. I mean, I see, like you said, okay, now I can't not see Blade. So
right. And that's exactly it. And I think it's even Vampire Hunter D was a Dhampir too, if I'm not mistaken, because he wasn't a pure vampire.
I could see that for sure.
And I could be wrong because it's been a long time since I've seen that anime.
The next one jumped at me as something that Shuri would do because it is a Hexblood. And there was a time where she tried to get Hag Hand and become a hag, and we thought she was betraying the party. And so that's kind of what this here is. Hexbloods manifest hag-like traits, such as long life, dark vision, and a variety of magical methods to beguile the senses and avoid the same. It has a situation in here where it actually has a section talking about becoming a hag. And hags can undertake a ritual to irreversibly transform a hexblood they created into a new hag. So I think that's what Shuri was going for. Again, we get a stack of origins where you come from seeking child. Your parents made a bargain with a hag. You're the result of that arrangement. So we got some Into the Woods type stuff happening. Fae kidnapper swapped you and your parents' child. So this kind of reminds me of what's the other vampire one where they swap, or not vampire, but monster game where they swap out the kids and you're like a doppelganger. What are they called?
I don't know.
I thought there was a thing where they were demons just replaced the child and grow up as a host and thing. Yeah, that's what's the Netflix show? Tales of Acadia. I think there are these.
I haven't watched that one yet.
That is a good one. That would be a good D&D reference type game. Anyway, demons hop in, or devils, or these little things swap out with babies, and they're shape changers. Is that what they are? Shape changers? I don't know.
Sure.
I thought there was a Vampire the Masquerade style game with these creatures. Changeling. Thank you.
Oh, Changeling. Well, that's a little different.
Yes, that's what they're called in the games. They're called changelings. Okay, so they are swapped out at birth, and they grow up in these families, and that's how they do it. Anyway, that was my brain fart rant. I don't mess up words. I just ramble. So Hexblood traits, Dark Vision, Fey Resilience, Hex Magic, and a Magic Token is what you get here. I like, again, Dark Vision, I think is going to be the theme throughout all of these, especially if you're dealing with a gothic world, lack of sunlight, very handy. Having the Fey Resilience, advantage against charm, and hex magic. You can disguise self and hex spells, or the hex spell with this trait. Intelligence, wisdom, or charisma is your spellcasting modifier for these, so you get to choose one when you choose this lineage, which I think is the first time we've seen that you get to choose where your magic comes from. A lot of times it is you're a high elf and you use intelligence for this ability or along those lines. Magic token. As an action, you can harmlessly pull out one of your nails, a tooth, or a lock of hair. This token is imbued with magic until you finish a long rest. While the token is imbued this way, you can use an action to send a telepathic message to the creature holding or carrying the token. So I'm going to rip out my tooth, give it to you, and we can talk as long as we're within 10 miles. In addition, while you're within 10 miles of the token, you can use an action to enter a trance for 1 minute, during which you can see and hear from the token as if you were located there. So now all of a sudden the tooth has eyes. And again, another ability that you can use this, can do so again until you finish a
That
long
seems
rest.
really creepy.
Yes, yes. You can use this once per long rest, at which point your missing part regrows, which is nice because I had questions about what happens when you're out of teeth. So
Well, you just gum your food. That's all.
there you go. Go on, honey. Take a scouting trip. I'll be with you.
Yeah, just like that.
And the last one we got of this was the Reborn. Death isn't always the end. The Reborn exemplify this by being individuals who have died yet somehow still live. Some Reborn exhibit the scars of fatal fates, their ashen flesh, missing limbs, or bloodless veins, making it clear that they've been touched by death. This here kind of reminded me of Revenant, also struck a chord with me as Death Knights. I could see this being a story if you're going to do some World of Warcraft type stuff. Faded memories. Reborn suffer some manner of discontinuity in an interruption in their lives or physical state that their minds are ill-equipped to deal with, which kind of made me think of also baggage and sleevage and then that kind of stuff for altered carbon. So lost memories on this scale, you get a D8. A random one here is if you roll a 3, you recall a childhood memory. What about that event or who you were still influences you? So I like that idea. I think it attacks a lot of, again, another avenue of playing something with each one kind of being different to help you figure out who or what you are, why you are, or give you a quest or a mission, or some sort of baggage to deal with. Reborn origins, things you can, or why you could be reborn. You were magically resurrected, but something went wrong, which I thought was a lot of fun. Another random one, you were released after being petrified for generations. Your memories have faded, though, and your body is not what it once was. So you could have been that great adventurer from 200 years, or you fell asleep to the 5,000-year poison gas, and you're waking up in a different area. So reborn traits, your type is humanoid as well as construct or undead. You choose when you gain this lineage, which I thought was pretty cool. You do get dark vision like the others. And then deathless nature. You have escaped death, a fact represented by the following benefits. You have advantage on saving throws against disease and being poisoned, and you have resistance to poison damage. You have advantage on death saving throws. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. You don't need to sleep. And magic can't put you to sleep. You can finish a long rest in 4 hours if you spend those hours in an inactive, motionless state, during which you retain your consciousness. So the elven abilities pop up in a different way. And then knowledge from past life. You temporarily remember sporadic glimpses of the past, perhaps faded memories from an age ago or a previous life. When you make an ability check that uses a skill, you can roll a d6 and add the number rolled to the check. You could use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So 2 avenues there. You know what? I'm going to use this ability. Something popped up. It could also be a really nice thing of, your eyes glaze over and all of a sudden you pick that lock and you have this stare in your eye of not even realizing you did it. Your fingers memorized it, and it could cause issues for your character. I think there's, again, an ability that causes role play is a fun opportunity. So
Cool. So that's the whole thing?
that was all 3 of them.
Awesome. I do have a link in the show notes to the UA if you guys want to check that out. Nolan, thank you so much for taking the time to dig into those and explaining those to us. We really appreciate that.
They're fun. I like seeing them. I'm a bigger fan of classes, but they're getting really good with some of the races and social backgrounds. And I think they're, is it weird to say after 6 or 7 years they're hitting their stride on some of this stuff? I don't know. But
No, I think that's fair because I
it's
do think
getting
it takes some time
better.
to get it all figured out.
Yeah, I think that is the thing. I think they've kind of hit that thing, and now they're doubling down on what we like. So
Right. And I do think, as we see these UAs come out, I know sometimes they are to try to correct some of the stuff that's in books, and we see that eventually as an errata. But a lot of times these UAs are preludes to what's coming. And I think I would not be surprised to see another Magic source book soon, because I think the last one was Theros, and that's been well over a year ago. Um, I do think if they're going to do a Magic source book, Innistrad would be a good one. You and I both talked about that world, and that we both liked playing Magic when Innistrad sets were popular. So I think that'll be interesting to see. Keep an eye on, and we'll keep you guys posted if anything new comes of it.
My,
Which is the
I
oh,
was gonna
sorry,
say
go ahead.
my I've got two fears on that one there. That you might finally be right that there's going to be a Volo's Guide to Spirits Inspectors or whatever it was after 5 years of predicting it.
Right.
And my final fear is that we're going to start doing what Magic does and do return ofs. And
Sure.
I maybe and maybe not necessarily a fear of bad because I felt like Curse of Strahd was kind of a re-envisioning of the old tale. It would like to see that realm spiral out of control, or some sort of
Yes.
because we're running out of we're dealing with monsters and demigods and stuff like that. I'd be curious to see if the planes started to unravel or something like that. Like I think that'd be kind of cool and go back and like you said, there's a lot there's a Dragonlance character there, and that might be an opportunity to bring in that. So
It would be interesting to take the idea of Curse of Strahd, where supposedly, the characters have successfully killed Strahd, and maybe, because I mean, in theory, Strahd never dies; he just remanifests and starts the whole cycle over. Maybe the players are successful, and it's caused the entire demi plane of Ravenloft to shift, and now there's a massive power struggle going on between all the demi lords. And this is me completely speculating here. There's a massive power struggle going on within the demi plane of Ravenloft with all the demi lords, and maybe that's why we're seeing some of this stuff, because it is that darker, dreary, more undead type horror aspect of the game. And to include someone like Lord Soth, as you mentioned, there's a Ravenloft or a Dragonlance character in Ravenloft, would be amazing. And there's some great novels that were written for Ravenloft, and unfortunately in 5e Ravenloft has just been, okay, here's Curse of Strahd and we're going to move on. I would love Ravenloft is my favorite plane of D&D. I would love to see a lot more come out of Ravenloft. It would be fucking amazing.
can't agree.
Anyway, Wizards of the Coast also announced a new YouTube series debuting February 2nd called Stuff of Legends. And this is a riot. It is Fraggle Rock meets Dungeons and Dragons, and I am all on board. This is a D&D series unlike anything you've seen before. Each episode switches between the adventurers at the table and the puppets that play them as they are take on a kidnapping case in Waterdeep. The series was created by and DM'd by Jovenshire. He is joined by the illustrious cast of Lasercorn, Shanna Malcolm, Brandon Rogers, and Lisa Foyles. The hilarity begins February 2nd with a new episode every week on the Jovenshire YouTube channel. I do have the promo video in the show notes. You guys, you got to watch this because the puppets, they really do look cool.
I think about like whenever I see some of the Critical Role stuff come out, I get fascinated by people's animations to it, and it makes the story come alive. And so I wanted to glaze over it and not pay attention to it, and then I found myself like, yeah, okay, I've got a feeling of what was it? Was it Crank Yankers where they did
Yes.
where they did the prank phone calls with puppets, and it was a little more adult, and I could see it getting out of control quickly. So I am looking forward to this.
I am too. I I watched the preview to this, and I was laughing. I thought this is going to be fun to see. So I am looking forward to this one, guys. Again, I have the link to the Jovenshire's YouTube channel in the show notes, as well as the promo video. Watch the promo video; it's so well worth watching. Other D&D news. Fans of Dragonlance should be excited to learn that we will indeed be getting a new trilogy in the beloved setting beginning this year. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman have confirmed that the details have been worked out with Wizards of the Coast, and they are moving forward. It does appear that the first two books have provisional titles. It's Dragons of Deceit and Dragons of Fate. And it also, my understanding is that these books have already been written. So it could be that I think we're going to see the first one quickly, and then I'd imagine they'll stagger the releases after that. I did see somewhere else that these books will return us to the beloved characters of Dragonlance. So I'd imagine we're going to see Kitiara, Tanis Halfhelven, Riverwind, and all of them once again, with the exception of, I think, Sturm and Flint are both dead.
It depends on, I guess, where you go, right? Because after everything
Sure.
is all said and done, Riesling kind of does his thing and nukes the world. So
Yeah. Well, yeah.
if there's given the titles, I think that might be one of those things of some time stuff maybe happening. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I'm good with old characters. I'm good with new characters.
Sure.
Picking up
I mean,
with it.
it's D&D, so the fact that a character could be resurrected, that's absolutely possible. Um,
Yep.
I do have a question though, Nolan. Do you think with the announcement that we're getting Dragonlance novels, do you think that possibly this means we will not be getting a Dragonlance setting book, at least this year?
I I think you'll see. It'll depend on popularity, right? I think that's one of those things of I don't think you can fail with putting out a Dragonlance book at this point in time, just because the first one's going to be bought out of curiosity, right? We want to see what it is. And then the second one being already done, they've had their time. I think it'll be one of those things of you can do that at any point. That's not something that probably Perkins is working on, right? Because you have the people who created the world right there. So I think you could almost see it like a Tal'Dorei source book or something like that, where it probably doesn't impede their ability to pump out 1 or 2 books a year. So when we actually see it, I don't know, but I definitely think that they would be silly not to. I mean, this would have to be more popular, I think, than a Magic campaign setting.
I would think you're right, and honestly, even going back to like the idea of Innistrad as a campaign setting, I would much rather see them put out an official Ravenloft guidebook instead of just Curse of Strahd. So we would have a Ravenloft setting, and I would 100% be on board with that being the setting book that we get this year, and then get these novels out for Dragonlance, let that pump up some of the excitement for it, and then release Dragonlance next year. I That would be great.
I think there's an opportunity there. Again, just depending on the fact that they're still involved as the original people, it's going to be handled for love. It's not
Right.
EA taking over Mass Effect from BioWare. You know what I mean? Like it's the original people. So
Right. We have
I
Weiss and Hickman working on these. I think we're gonna get the Dragonlance we love, hopefully updated to take care of some of the issues that Dragonlance had, and bring it into a more modern time. I'm excited. Just the idea of reading about Tasselhoff again, just because I love that character. So I think it's gonna be. I'm thrilled.
yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait.
Did you know? And I did not know this, that there is 190 novels written in the Dragonlance world.
I did not know that.
I think I've maybe read 8 of them.
I know I have 9 because there was 3 trilogies, and then I think there was like 4 more that I didn't get, but I did not know it was
Right.
that many. So
I had
apparently
no
it's
clue.
popular.
I'd be curious to see how many Forgotten Realms books there are.
Yeah, if you look at like I suppose with Legends and stuff like that for Star Wars, I mean the series it probably gets out of hand.
See, one of my favorite book series, and of course, is not D&D related, is the Horus Heresy from Warhammer 40K. I absolutely love that series, and I have a collection, both digital and hard copies, and I think I have maybe 20 or 30 books. And every time I think, oh, there's no more, I get to reading the checklist, and I'm like, son of a bitch, there's a lot, and I would be afraid to look at the list of Dragonlance novels. Now, maybe some of them I've read, I probably forgot that I've read most of them because it's been so long, but I would be interested in seeing.
Yeah, I bet there's a bunch of fan stuff.
Yeah, probably. And I guarantee you, I mean, I'm not saying that these are all written by Weiss and Hickman. I do remember there was a Thieves series that I read that I enjoyed, and there was a couple others I do remember reading that were Dragonlance that I thought, man, this book is just not good. So anyway, so we do have a lot of stuff coming, or there is a lot of stuff coming out for D&D. I do have a link to the show, or in the show notes, to the official press release from Weiss and Hickman if you guys want to check that out. It is exciting. I'm looking forward to picking up the Dragonlance novel. I'll absolutely be reading it.
Yep.
So let's bounce over to Onyx Path. Not a whole lot of news over there, but there is some stuff going on. Of course, the Scion Kickstarter is absolutely rocking and rolling. This funded in 66 minutes is currently blown through 13 stretch goals. It's well over $100,000 at this point. If you're a fan of Scion, you're going to want to check this one out. Remember that this Kickstarter is for 2 books, so you can pick to back or you can pick one over the other. You'll be back in the project, but you can choose one or the other, or you can back it at a higher level and get both books. So do keep that in mind. I do have a link in the show notes for that. The Jackie's Dreaming Bundle that Onyx Path was hosting. This was a project that they put out to help Jackie Casada, who passed away in December of COVID-19, to help her partner, Nikki Ray, to defray some of the medical costs. Both Jackie and Nikki got sick with COVID. And of course, Nikki has these massive medical bills and other bills that she's dealing with Jackie's passing. So Onyx Path did this project called Jackie's Dreaming Bundle because she was huge in the world of darkness, especially when it came to Changeling the Dreaming. In total, they raised $41,000 to help Nikki Ray defray some of these costs. I think that's really awesome that Onyx Path did this, and they're donating that money directly to Nikki.
Absolutely.
No news on what the next Kickstarter is going to be from Onyx Path, but of course, as soon as we hear something, we will let you know. If you're a fan of World of Darkness, do remember that at least at the moment, Paradox has passed the mantle of that over to other people, so Onyx Path may not be involved in that too much. Hopefully, we do see them get back involved. I'm sure there is some negotiation going on there, but at least for the immediate future, we will not be seeing World of Darkness, at least Vampire the Masquerade related stuff, unless it was a pre-approved project. So do keep that in mind. Modifius has announced that we will see the launch of the free Achtung Cthulhu 2D20 Quick Start Guide next month. It includes an adventure that takes place in France and sees the players confronting the evil lurking in Saint Selac. Achtung Cthulhu, Nolan, do you know much about this?
I don't.
Yeah. Achtung Cthulhu is, of course, Call of Cthulhu, but in this case, there's so interesting, and I learned this from talking to David Larkins, sorry. Achtung Cthulhu takes place during World War II. So there's different eras of Cthulhu. And of course, Call of Cthulhu takes place in the turn of the century, early 1900s. Then there's Pulp Cthulhu that takes place in like the 1930s. And then Achtung Cthulhu takes place during World War II. So there is that coming out. Modifius has said they're also continuing to work on the Achtung Cthulhu Player's Guide and GM Handbook. And those are going to be released soon. So if you're a fan of Cthulhu and you're a fan of Achtung Cthulhu, keep your eyes open for that.
We had a Lith Legacy in chat was asking if you've heard any word on the release of Deviant the Renegades.
That is a great question. So Deviant the Renegades, of course, was on Kickstarter, where I believe it was a year and a half ago now. I know I was looking through some of the Monday meeting notes, and it does look like they're moving through the process. I think they're getting ready to release the PDF to Kickstarter backers, and usually that goes through like they release it. There is an errata phase. They re-release it with the updates, and then it goes to printing. Now, if you're a fan of Deviant the Renegades and you wanted to get that before, because I don't believe you can get it on the backer kit anymore, they will release the POD version before Kickstarter backers get their book. So keep that in mind. If you're anxious about that, I'd imagine you're going to see something from Deviant within the next probably 30 to 60 days. And again, this is completely my estimation based on other projects that I have backed from Onyx Path in the time frame that we got the PDF versus the time frame that it came to POD. Does that answer your question, Lith Legacy? Okay, perfect. Glad to hear it. Just remember, keep in mind that it's completely my speculations. Hunters Entertainment, we talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the show. They did launch the Kickstarter for Gods of Metal Ragnarok. I watched the video to this. Wow, this game looks fun. It looks as absurd as you can even think about it, and I sincerely hope that if Hunters Entertainment puts out an actual play of this, because they did that for Altered Carbon, that they grab Jack Black and they make him be a part of it, because oh my gosh, it would be hilarious. In fact, get Kyle Gass too. Let's just get Tenacious D playing Gods of Metal Ragnarok, because that would be amazing. The initial ask was for $20,000, and they have blown past that and sitting at around $52,000 with plenty of of time to go. I think there was like 27 days left. Of course, we're going to be going more into this book next week when Chris is on our show to talk about it. So make sure you tune in to check that out. We don't know a whole lot about it. I did not dive into any of the mechanics or anything about that game. I did go ahead and back it, though. I sat there at work yesterday, and it was slow enough that it prompted me to say, well, I'm not doing anything here. I might as well do this.
I like a
So,
lot of their fluff on the Kickstarter as well. The hardcore rule book and that kind of
yeah.
stuff. Like they market the heck out of it, and they're doing a good job.
They did. It's like, and you look through the different levels that you could back it at. It's like, okay, you can do the PDF, you can do this, and you want a book? Fuck yeah! It's like, and it's like
Yeah.
typed in there, and I think it's hilarious. Now, the unfortunate thing about the Kickstarter, and I think it was true about the Altered Carbon one too, is to get the stretch goals, you actually have to back it at a pretty high level. Like typically, when I do Kickstarters, I because I tend to back a few, as Nolan knows, and I usually do around $50 to $55 just to get the book. And usually for Onyx Path, that's enough to get the stretch goals too. And some of the stretch goals include like the opportunity to get PDFs of other books. In the case of like Deviant the Renegades, there's going to be a lot of supplements that are put out for Deviant that I'll be able to have access to the PDF. Now, in the case of like Chicago by Night, I ended up picking up the books as well because I wanted to have all the books because I'm stupid that way. I like books. With this one, to get the stretch goals, you had to buy in at $100.
Yeah, and you
So
got everything, but that was the only
yeah,
spot you could.
and not only do you get everything, you also get they're going to be releasing a special vinyl album that if you have a record player, if you're old, as Nolan likes to remind me, like me, you probably do have a record player. And yes, I do. And I'm kind of excited to throw on this album and listen to the metal that they have included in it.
Yeah, and I
So
think really with the stretch goals, I can see value in there. $50 for a book is about par for the course. They've got dice tray, the metal album, some guitar picks, some Metal God votive candles, Metal God glyph pins, and Metal God statues. And the likeness of the Metal Gods can grace your table or bone altar. There are 6 total. What scale are they, you ask? They are the scale of Metal Gods. So that is
they
the
really are hyping it up. And I,
yeah.
like I said, I really hope they get Jack Black involved in this in some way.
Yeah, it's a great page. So if you get a chance to look at the Kickstarter, if you're not going to back it, at least scroll through and read the stretch stuff because dice are dice. These dice are literally made of metal and can probably kill a drummer if you threw on them. So we hear. Do not throw these at drummers, without good reason. Throw them at your own table and damage the hell out of it like a fucking rock star. So
Now, some of that stuff is add-ons, like the candles and the dice and stuff like that. There is a cost associated with those. So, although it unlocks a stretch goal, you still have to pay for them. And I think that like the dice were like $40 or something. The stuff that I'm excited about, and I'm kind of kicking myself now thinking back to the Altered Carbon one, is making sure I have access to the other supplements that they're going to be releasing with those books. I love the Altered Carbon book; they've done a fantastic job with it. I will be, if available, picking up the POD versions of those of the supplements that come out, and I'm hoping that that's going to be the case with Gods of Metal Ragnarok. At least get me the PDF so we can start taking a look at it. Yeah, the link for the Kickstarter is in the show notes, guys. Go check it out because it's like Nolan said, it's a fun Kickstarter just to peruse and not even make a purchase.
you got
But it's probably going to
Fozzy
talk into
on the
purchasing.
album, so I support it.
There, that's awesome. All right, so Nolan, we have come to the end of the news, unless you found something that I didn't.
Nope.
Perfect. So before we jump into the topic, do you need to take a break and go get coffee? Do we have any questions in chat that we need to address?
I don't see any new questions. We could do a quick coffee run real fast, and then that way if people have something, we can address them when we get back.
Okay. Before we take a break, do you want to quickly throw up the Altered Carbon character sheet so people can at least take a look at that while we're taking a break?
Yep.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool.
Doesn't look like we have any questions in chat, so we're good to go.
Awesome. Well, good. Thanks for throwing up that character sheet. I know it doesn't show the whole thing, but it gives people an idea of what they're going to be. It'll help as we describe the system anyway. All right. So, like we said, our topic for the night is going to be on Altered Carbon. In this case, we're going to be discussing some of the game mechanics. Now, understand that this is not a hardcore, in-depth look. We're just kind of going to go over how the game works. We did include a link in the show notes from Hunters Entertainment to the video of how to play Altered Carbon. Really, for the most part, it's a fairly simple system. Wouldn't you agree?
I think so. I think it would take you a time or maybe two to get used to the dice rolls. But I felt like it was pretty simple. Just a new system. So.
Right. I think the key thing to remember when it comes to this system of Altered Carbon is stat high, roll low. And that is really important. A couple things that we want to discuss. So some of the things that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about skill checks. We're going to talk about how to determine what you need to roll, and we're going to talk about the dice that you're going to be rolling. And this really does cover a lot of the mechanics of the game. So the first thing we want to talk about, of course, is skill checks. Now, those of you who are a fan of any role-playing game understand that you have skills on your character sheet that your character is able to do, and at some point during the game, your GM, your DM, whatever, is going to say, I need you to make X check, right? Okay, so in the case of Altered Carbon, you would get asked to make a skill check. The way the DM is going to do this, the GM is going to do this, is they're going to tell you, like, say, in this case, Nolan, you wanted to hack into a protectorate system, a low-level protectorate system, and you have computer hacking abilities. And I'm your GM, and you tell me exactly what you want to do, and I'll say, okay, Nolan, great. Let me go ahead and have you make a hacking check. Your target result, and this is an important term to remember, your target result is the number at which you need to make your skill check, and you need to roll to that number or lower. So I would say, Nolan, your target result is 8. And you would look at your character sheet, determine which dice you're going to roll, and we'll get in that in just a second. You would roll your dice, and if you rolled an 8 or lower, congratulations, you did it. And again, the other thing to remember is that there are degrees of success, which we're going to get to in a minute, that will affect how well you did it. Now, it could be, yep, you did it, you're in, or it could be, yep, you did it, and holy crap, did you do this and this and this as well? And we're going to get to that in just a second. So I just wanted to discuss that real quick. Skill checks, you roll the dice, you hit the target result or lower, and that's how you successfully complete the task. Fairly simple, yes?
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Just to give you an idea of what the target results range looks like, the 12 or higher is a very trivial thing. It's like opening the window, turning on the TV. You're typically never going to roll for something like this, right? 10 to 11 is something that's very easy to do. 8 to 9 is a normal thing. 6 to 7 is a tricky thing. 4 to 5 is challenging. 2 to 3 is complicated. And 0 to 1 is nearly impossible. Now, they say nearly impossible because you can always roll a 1.
Yep.
It's just like in D&D, you roll a crit, no matter what, you have hit what you're trying to do. Where the target number can change is when you start including attribute bonuses. And this gets a little weird. So in this case, you want the target number to be higher, right? Because you want to be able to roll below it. So in the case of like the computer hacking scenario, let's say there's a very specific thing that goes on within this computer hacking situation, and you happen to be really good at that very specific thing. We'll say it's security. And so you have computer hacking security specifically, and it gives you a +2 when rolling against security. So I would say, Nolan, I need you to make your computer hacking check, but it is going to require you to have some security ability. And you're like, great, I have security at a +2. So when I tell you that the target rate is 8, and you say, but I have a +2, it is now 10. And you get to roll 10 or lower because you have that plus. So attribute bonuses are very important, and making sure you stat correctly is very important. So this is really one of those things where you need to make sure you're choosing your archetype correctly because it's going to help you as you stat your character.
Make sure you're able to do the things you want to do.
Right. I was just checking chat real quick to see if there's any questions.
You good?
Good. So we talked about degrees of success, and there's also degrees of failure. So, and I'm going very slowly through this to try to explain it as clearly as I can. So we go back right to that computer thing that I asked Nolan to roll. He's rolled his dice. He has rolled a 6, and he needed a 10. This means he has 4 degrees of success, and these are great. Degrees of success can be used to do other things. They can be used in situations where you need to cancel things out. On their turn, a character can use their degree of difference as if it were a degree of success in their own favor by converting it to a degree of difference represented by never mind, that's not important. You can use your degree of success to cancel out your opponent's degree of success in the case of a contested thing. So that's really important to remember. The best skill check obviously is the lowest skill check, and the other thing that is, it becomes a narrative thing. So in the case of like the security situation where I say, Nolan, make your roll, you rolled a 6, you have 4 degrees of success, I'm able to say, not only did you succeed in trying to hack into this system, you've been able to completely circumvent it, and it will be down for the next 3 hours when you're only trying to get 1. Now, and there's plenty of times where you're like, well, hold on, I don't need it to be down for 1 or 3. That's going to raise other alarms. I need it to be down for 1 completely. And you know, just work with your GM in that situation. Because I think there's been times where you and I've played and I've said something, you're like, whoa, wait, that's a little further than I wanted to go.
Yeah, you do really
and
good.
We've had to back it up.
Rein it back in. Well, I think there's opportunities to drop those things. Hey, while you're cycling through the information you did so well, that 3 other things caught your eye that you can put away for later. Or
Yes.
you're scrolling through files and like 2 names pop up that you didn't expect to see connected to this, and now you've thrown in some plot hooks to help them with it or whatever.
Right.
Right.
So you can use those degree of success to enable those kind of things. And it really does become a narrative situation at that point, because I could say very, very simply, and I was watching some of the live play with when Ivan Van Norman was GMing it, and he would say, why don't you tell me what you were trying to do? Okay, great. And now we can give you that with your degrees of success. Worked really, really well.
You see that a lot too. I watched we were talking about the Alter Carbon anime that came out re-sleeved. There's a situation in there where she gets a ID card, goes into the computer to look for, she's like an undercover cop, tries to grab some information, and while she's there, she accidentally discovers extra information that's pertinent to the story and changes how some of the outcomes come because she did it too well. And so really does. They talk a couple times about it in the book as well of cinematic purposes for that kind of stuff. So it's awesome. I really like that idea. Like, hey, I need you to carry this bucket up, in D&D. Like, okay, make a roll. You need a 5, I roll a 20. Cool, you pick the bucket up. That's what happens.
Yeah. And I think we've even in our games of D&D, because of other storytelling games that we've played, we've started to incorporate that. Not only did you do that so well, you got this and this too. Yeah. And I think I think it's a great way to include, makes people feel good about the high roll that they got.
You never waste a crit.
Right, exactly. There's the counterbalance too. So in the case of, like, I told you to roll a 10 and you're rolling a D12 because you've got really bad stats, and we're going to get to that in a second, and you roll a 12, well, now you have 2 degrees of failure that you're dealing with. We'll get to luck dice here in a second. So that means not only did you fail, you failed really bad, and there's going to be consequences for your actions. So where you get the degrees of success that are positive, you do have degrees of failure that, again, goes into that narrative aspect that can cause you to have issues further.
Yeah, and sometimes if it is a bigger deal too of picking a lock and you fail by 1 degree of success or whatever, it's like, okay, I really need my players to get through the door. It takes you about 3 minutes longer than you wanted to be here.
Right.
And now you've tripped another alarm, or you can give them the win but have a chain of events happen because they did it poorly, or it, because again, sometimes the dice just aren't in your favor.
Right. And this really pulls on the story path system from Onyx Path, where they talk about you do these things and then you had this amazing failure. Or I think they call it success at any cost. So yes, you succeed, but there's going to be a price for it.
Yeah,
So it
a
could be,
bloody
yeah, you
critical.
failed, but right. Yeah, that's exactly it. Okay,
I
so
liked, and I think the other thing in there too is you kind of touched on a little bit is the bonus rolls and the luck dice, and that's kind of its own section as
yep.
well. But just adding to the degree of of opportunity for success or failure as the storyteller, I think can help on that. You know what? I need you to win on this, or I need this to be a little more interesting. Roll a bonus dice.
Yes, and we're going to get to those in just a second. In fact, that's the very next subject, but I do want to touch on aces real quick. An ace is something that happens when you roll an unmodified one. So you have bonuses and such that allows you to roll your dice, and you are able to roll a one and succeed. So that's just like rolling a 20 in D&D. You get criticals, and those are awesome.
Yeah, it'd be like I said. That'll be the only weird part about it. Is like, oh, I rolled a weight. I rolled a one. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Getting used to rolling low is going to be different. So let's talk about. I don't want to go into opposed checks because for the most part, opposed checks work like this. You each make your roll. Whoever and you both pass. The way you determine that is whoever has the most degrees of success wins. So really simple on that.
And I think that's one of those things of we saw that with Vampire as well. The roll system's
Yes.
fairly simple. Combat, I think your first few times will be kind of a slog or bogged down a little bit just as you get used to it. But I really don't think it was that bad. I think with the opposed checks and stuff like that, a session or two, and I think most people would have it down.
Right. There are saving throws that you're going to be required to make during the game. They're usually in response to something happening, and you don't want to like the fireball being dropped in the room or something like that, where it's a reflex. Saving throws differ from other skill checks because they are outside of the character's declared intent, and they are usually penalized with the difficulty and may require a character resolve. I believe that's stack points, if I'm not mistaken, but they otherwise function exactly the same as skill checks. There's a lot of symbols in the book that I don't remember, so there is some issues there. It does go into specializations, like we were talking about the security specialization, and that is some things that you can do. There are it gets weird with specializations because like whereas before we were talking about having computer hacking and then security, if you don't have that security, you attempting that role is going to impose a negative. Whereas if you do have security, it may not give you or will not give you the negative and very well may give you a positive. So in this case, if like you're attempting to do the computer hacking, you do not have the security aspect. It's like, yes, you can make the roll, but remember your target number is going down by 3. So where it was 8, now you need to roll below a 5 on your D12.
And the examples they give in the book are, firearms in general, and then firearms pistol, or what you're trying to pull off.
Right.
So it does get specific to your training. A basic one there is, I like this idea because it's like, hey, in D&D, make an athletics check that encompasses all athletics. And here it's like, we need an athletics of swim 8, or else it's -2. And you're like, well, I got a lot of muscle mass. I'm swim like a rock. I'm like, all right, well, -2 to your roll. I mean, you can figure it out, but it's not going to be Michael Phelps. So good luck.
Yep.
So I like that kind of thing. I like that level of specialization, just because it, again, further customizes a character. This is what I'm good at. This is what I know, and also there might be a story why you're not good at swimming. So.
Yep. Now we've talked about different dice in the system, and that is something that is very integral to this system, and it's really important that people understand this. If you have a skill of 1, you are not good at it. Yes, I know how to do this thing, but I'm not very good at it. So that means you're going to be rolling the worst die in the game, which in this case is a D12. So again, this is indicative to the whole thing where I say, okay, Nolan, I need you to roll a 6. Well, you're rolling a D12.
And 50-50 shot, give or take
exactly
levels of difficulty.
Right, and that's before any levels of difficulty are added. If you have a level 2 in a skill, your skill level is low, and you're rolling a d10. Um, and the cool thing is, I do like this function. It says skill level of 2 can choose to automatically post unopposed checks for a narrative reason if the TR is 15 or higher. And every level has that. And I thought that was really cool. I like that they included that. It gives you the ability to say, I can just go ahead and narrate through this. And I think
Right.
that's cool.
Yeah, the opposed check is an 8, and you're rolling your best dice of the d4. You cannot fail this. This
Right.
is what you do. Like, this is your reason for being. So you
Right.
can't mess it
It's
up.
like,
And so Matt Mercer stuff. How do you want to do this?
yeah, exactly. Yep, that's exactly it. So skill level 3 is moderate. You're rolling a d8, and you can choose to automatically pass unopposed checks of TR 12 or higher. Skill level 4 is a d6, and you can choose to pass TR levels 10 or higher. And then lastly, skill level is a d4. Um, and you can choose, what is it, TR 8 or higher. This means you're a master. You're Takeshi Kovacs. You are as good with every weapon that you pick up as any other weapon on the street. You can pick up the car, beat the shit out of somebody with it, and still roll a d4 because you're just that damn good.
I know I am. Thank you.
I'm glad to pump up your ego there, Bal. So I do want to get into bonus dice real quick. Bonus dice, Nolan mentioned these earlier. And bonus dice, there's situations where bonus dice can be added to a character's dice pool. When rolling a bonus dice, the players may pick the skill check die or the bonus die with the most favorable results. Now, these are interesting in that it's up to the DM. It's up to the DM GM to decide whether or not you're going to get a bonus dice, because maybe you're attempting something that uh, is just really good, or you've narrated the shit out of something, you've role played the hell out of something, and the GM's like, you know what, you did a really good job with that. Why don't you go ahead and add a bonus dice to your dice pool?
Well, and I think there's a couple of opportunities there too, because it's like, okay, I want to pick the lock. And you're like, all right, do you have Thieves' Tool? I'm like, yeah. Okay, times 2 it. And now you're rolling
Right.
3d8 because your equipment, you have the chip to let you bypass security. The hacking is
Yep.
easier because of events that you've done. And then the second part of that is they talk about mismatch. It doesn't have to necessarily be advantage. So if we're talking, if you have a skill check for a d8 and your gear has a 2dx or plus 2dx because of the Thieves' Tool, you get to roll 3d8. The other opportunity is mismatch. Right. The example that they give is a character can have the very respectable rating of D6 for medicine, but have access to medicines that add a D12 to the dice pool as a bonus action. The D6 will be more than likely sufficient, but the additional D12 offers the character a marginal safety net in case the D6 results in a failure. Lucky dice results and/or difficulty can be added to both dice results as GM discretion. So, again, that is one of those things of I'm really good with this. Go ahead and use it. Listen, it's an exceptional made item. Go ahead and add a D12, and so it
Right.
does. I like the idea of the storyteller getting involved without in that way of adding to this is a good moment. This is going to be a great thing. Whatever.
Right. And the cool thing is like, when you roll these dice, when you roll the bonus die, you get to choose which dice you want to use. They don't both add to your dice pool. So if you roll your skill check dice and you roll a 6 and you need a 5, and then you roll your bonus dice of a d12 and you roll a 2, you get to say I succeed, which is really awesome. And like you were talking about, this item is really well made. So think of the situation where your character has been shot up, you're bleeding really bad. The person next to you is, the fight's over, they're trying to save you. They have medicine skill, but they need something to stop the bleeding, and they rip off their shirt and use that to bandage you up. As the GM, I can say, great, go ahead and roll your medicine. Your TR is 6. Because it's, you've been shot up pretty good. It is a little bit more difficult, but you added the shirt to the aspect. So now you actually have a bandage. You're going to go ahead and roll a d12 bonus dice.
Yep.
So it gives you 2 opportunities to succeed. Now, in the case of, he's like, I have a med kit in my backpack and I can 100%, patch him up. Awesome. Roll, and you're now rolling a d6 bonus dice or a d4, or I'm a surgeon and I have my surgeon tools right here and I have everything I need. Great. Now you're going to roll a d4 bonus dice.
Yep. And then the the other thing on that there is a bonus die cannot result in an ace or a catastrophe.
Correct.
So the DM can't be like, hey, I'm going to try and help you out and also screw you at the same time. So this is to help the situation in this situation.
Right. So if you roll a 1 on your bonus dice, it's just a success. It is not an ace. If you fail, like if you roll the most extreme number on your dice, it is not a catastrophe. You can just choose to ignore it. It's just a failure.
Well, yeah, you got the bandage. Well, roll a 12. I rolled a 12. Perfect. That guy was a leper.
Exactly. So the other dice that you can add to your dice pool is the luck die. These are really interesting too, and this is again a DM related thing where the DM can say we're going to add a luck die to this, and it could be good or bad. It could be, yeah, you know what, you've had a string of failures right now, and you feel like a string of bad luck. Go ahead and add a luck die to it, and the reason they're adding that is it could be a bad thing. Luck dice is rarely useful in combat and other opposed checks since both sides are relying on on chance to a similar extent. However, if the GM feels that the luck plays a substantial role in a character's action, such as a particularly risky move, it can be applied. The way the dice is handled varies from situation the characters face and what kind of the story the GM is telling. It is recommended that luck dice be used when the difficulty is variable or otherwise unknown. This is especially true if the character's attribute, training value, or skill level is great enough so that the rolling a failure of any kind is numerically impossible without it. So you talked about where the TR is 8 and you're rolling a D4. Well, the DM can choose, because they want to add a risk of something, they can choose to add a luck die to it. And the way this works is, and this is really interesting, if you roll a luck die and your luck die rolls the highest possible face value, no matter what your other die is, you have just endured a catastrophe. Which is almost kind of bullshit, because as a player, you may feel like the GM is trying to fuck you over here, but it does add a level of narration to your game. Because there's always that chance, there's always that chance that Kovac, who's an excellent combat technician or whatever, attempts to do something and fails so miserably that even he's going, what the fuck just happened? And he had a stroke of bad luck. So there are different levels of luck. The GM handles it in some of the following ways. Beginner's luck. The option is applied when the stakes are low, but the story is still wide open in its possible outcomes. In this situation, the luck die is treated as a bonus die, but will trigger a stroke of luck. A stroke of luck is kind of when what is it? When the luck die rolls an ace.
Both.
Oh, that's right. When both dice are aces, you get a stroke of luck.
That's the one guy in the gun room type situation, and all of a sudden he ducks and they all shoot each other at the same time, and you don't know how to walk out of the room.
That's exactly it. Good call. Pressing their luck. We've all been in situations where we're trying to do something and we want to push it a little bit further. Well, that's going to be pressing your luck, and that's where a GM could add that dice. In this case, it does not act like a bonus dice. Then there's making your own luck. They're relying on their skills as opposed to the tools that they have available, which are being misused, being pushed their usable limits, or otherwise voiding their warranty. I love that line. In this case, a luck die is added to any bonus dice, but not skill check dice. So that gets really interesting too. So you roll your luck dice and your bonus dice, and you actually have to add those together in this case, because there is the chance that you could break the tool that you're working with, but it doesn't add to your skill dice.
John Wick killing people with a pencil.
Yeah, exactly. And the pencil not breaking.
Mm-hmm.
Tough luck. This is the luck dice is added to both the skill check dice and any bonus dice. This is obviously reserved for the most dire situations, represents the characters who are the most imperiled. Let's face it, there's been times where we do something in D&D where it's probably shouldn't have happened, but it's sometimes, because we rolled the dice, it happens. Mm-hmm. And I like the aspect that, yes, it can happen, but it's going to be rough.
Yep.
And then there's dumb luck. This one's kind of interesting. Dumb luck is at a player's discretion. A character may substitute their luck die result for their skill check and all other bonus dice results. To do this, they must play that is a stack point equal to the difference between their skill check die result and their luck die result. The option removes and replaces their skill check result entirely. If the luck die is an ace, or if it's highest face value possible, then this option cannot be used. So the example they give here, let's scroll down here. Celia rolls a d8 on her skill check and gets a 7. For her luck die, she gets a 4. This would count as having it rolled an 11. In this case, Celia wants to defer to her dumb luck. As such, she pays the difference in stack points. So in this case, 3 stack points, and treats the luck die as a result of 4 as her skill check result. As a GM, you may want to impose an escalating stack cost. That's really not important. So interesting ways to do that. Now, of course, this is how you handle skill checks. And really, skill checks, as we know in D&D or any other game, are really the root of the dice rolls that you're going to be making. Now, we're not talking about combat. We're not talking about getting into rolling initiative or anything like that. This is really just kind of handling the skill checks and the mechanics of the game in and of themselves. Wouldn't you agree?
I think so, especially in the storytelling path.
Right. So when it comes to combat, guys, we did not take a look at that because we felt like it was going to go longer than what we had time for. And even as such, we're already about 10 minutes over our normal time. So there's this game. I got to tell you, the game is awesome. I've looked through this. I've watched some of the live plays that Hunters Entertainment has put out. This game is really cool. There's a lot of neat functions in the game, and I love the artwork in the book itself. I love that they've pulled from the show and included that. I want to play this game. I think it looks like a blast.
Yeah, I'm of the same mindset. I could see making a character, and I think seeing it like would be completely different too, just from a standpoint of D&D. I feel like I need a party, right? This one here, I could see a small group almost being not necessarily better, but easier to do as well. You know, if you had the one-off type situation or whatever, and you know, you see Kovac alone making a couple allies here and there, but usually it's kind of one of those things of, you know, you're investigating something, you're a detective on something, you're being stealthy. I mean, it's not usually a Schwarzenegger movie. You're not kicking in the door, blowing up an entire building, and walking out with the explosion behind you. It's very stealthy, sneaky, espionage style, which lends itself to a smaller group.
Yes, I think you're 100% right. And I think the ones that I've watched, I believe the first one that came out did have more people in it. I think there's like 5 players. The next one had 4. Both of them were good. I enjoyed them both. But I do think if you had a group of 2 to 3 players, you could really dig into this game and get some intrigue. And I'm looking forward to some of the supplements that they're going to be putting out for this game. I would like to dive into that a little bit more just to get an idea of what a story would look like. I know there's some examples in the book itself. And I've been reading the Altered Carbon books by Richard K. Morgan, which are fantastic, by the way, Nolan. I highly recommend you read them. And I highly recommend anybody who might want to play this game to read them, because it does give you a level deeper than what you're going to get from the show. All of them are good. Just if you do read the books and you're a fan of the show, just remember season 1 and season 2 are an amalgamation of book 1. So don't get into book 2 and be like, what the hell? So just keep that in mind. I like the game.
I agree, and I think that'd be one of those things. If you had all the time in the world, you play with 3 people. I can see from like season 1 of the show, you know, you have one person playing Kovac, you have one person being, you know, the innkeeper, you got one person being the detective, and Sundays you get together and play the game, but Wednesday, you know, Thursday, Friday, you had little one-offs of what did you find out today? And then they come together for kind of the big, you know what I mean? Like you could have those little intermediate style games to piece together a major story and be like, I haven't seen you, you know, all day. What have you been up to? Like, well, you know, at the police station, I found this, or this person stopped by to see you. This is how I dealt with them. And I don't know, it could be a lot of fun.
Well, it's interesting when I think about, because like I said, I am reading Broken Angels right now, which is book 2, and you know we've talked about the transhuman aspect of Altered Carbon of the game itself, and that's one of the themes in this book. Is the aspect that like. So they're going to this dig site, right? And they need a secure team. Well, they've gone through basically a store of souls, if you want to call it, like a street market or a meat market kind of thing, where they went to this place and quite literally bought, like, I think it was like 3,000 stacks of soldiers who had been killed in this war that's going on this planet. And then they put them all in virtual, as they call it, and they analyze the shit out of them to find out which team is going to be the good one. And of that, like 3,000, they're able to pick, like, I think it's 5 or 6. And this is all done in a 2 to 3 month period in virtual, which is like 2 hours in real time. And then there's the whole issue of Kovac and the person he's working with interviewing them, which takes months, and then there's the integration of their sleeves, which takes weeks and months, and again, we're talking hours. And so it completely goes past that, and they're past the whole human aspect of it. So they've done a great job with this role playing game of capturing that element and bringing that into this world. And I couldn't recommend watching the actual plays enough if you really want to get an idea of what the game is like, because they do a really good job. All the players are fantastic. So, and I'm really looking forward to having Chris on the show next week to dive into this game a little bit more and even talk about Ragnarok, because I think that game's going to be fun.
Yeah, so, I'm really excited for that.
Me too. Nolan, that is all I have. We have gone on a little bit longer than we normally do. Is there anything else that I'm missing that we should talk about before we sign out?
I don't think so. We covered it.
Perfect. Guys, thank you so much for jumping in, Chad. We appreciate it. We love getting the questions and talking about anything that you guys want to talk about. We're always looking for new ideas. Hopefully we can get some information on Deviant here soon, because I'd imagine that's one of those that we would probably take a look at once we get. I know we've done a little bit on it, but it'd be fun to dive into that game a little bit more too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for the interviews. Next week should be a good weekend. So if you guys are around or get a chance, take a look at those. We've had some great interviews in the past, and usually come away more excited about games in every aspect, just because the passion comes through with these people. So,
and the number of times we've done an interview with somebody and I end up backing a project that I didn't think I was going to back. Yep. So, well, guys, that is the show for this week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.